Anything else about the homework? Did you have any success or have anything interesting that you learned in trying to create a lesson of your own with all these constraints and technology tools in mind?
I could not keep the links that I had that I wanted to use to show the students. I couldn't keep it on my desktop.
That's, I think, an easy problem to solve. If all the things that you want to include and have readily available are online, you could just create a tab. You may have to create multiple tabs, say for Google Drive. So one for a presentation, another one for a set of exercises. Open up another tab in another version of Google Doc, another instance of Google Docs for the other thing that I don't know, homework list, for example. But if you look at what I'm going to share screen again just briefly. I mean, I literally have created, if you look at the top of my window, multiple incidents. Well, this is Google Drive, that's Google Drive, that's Google Drive, that's Google Drive. These two are, all those are, separate accesses to Google Drive in order to open up that document and have it available. It's a lot easier, much easier than within a window, within a tab, trying to switch from one to another. That gets really cumbersome really quickly. So,
but how do you get that up there?
Let's see, this particular one is Chrome, I think. I've got both Chrome and Thunderbird in frequent use. I think this is Chrome. So you just hit a plus over up at the top right. When you first open a window, in fact, let me see, I'll just start from scratch. Okay, I just created an entirely new window by using this little menu at the upper right. Now I'm going to go to my Google Drive, and I'll open up the whiteboard, which we'll be using later today. And now, let's say I also want to have a presentation or something open. I hit the plus sign again. That creates another tab. The other tab is still open. In fact, my empty Google Drive, root directory is open. But from here, I can open another document on Google Drive, or I can open up anything that is accessible online, say a link to, okay, just for the sake of illustration. This is a Spanish-English dictionary, and if for some reason you wanted to have that, you could have that open. So it's just a matter of, once you have a window, hitting the plus sign at the top to create a tab. Thunderbird works in a similar way. That is Thunderbird, okay. There's Zoom, it works in a similar way. Actually, this is Chrome, works the same way. You've got tabs at the top, you hit a plus sign to create a new one, and then you can open up whatever you want to open up.
Yeah, I have to go in every couple of days and just clean up a ton of things because I spend a lot of time online. And every time I go to a new site, I get a new tab. If I don't actually close it, it's still there 2 days later.
Right. I find it pretty easy to keep things tidy on a Windows computer. On my phone, every once in a while, I'll realize that I have 26 tabs open because you don't see them simultaneously. They're kind of in a stack, and you can easily lose track. But yeah, this is what I clean this up after every class, before every class, get all this stuff lined up so I'm as ready as I can be. Any other general comments or questions? Okay.
Yeah, I have a general comment. I was looking at the lesson plans. There's been a couple of them, and they're very nice lesson plans, and I would have had no problem with in-person learning in following a lesson plan like that. I think realistically, for God knows how many weeks, they're going to have to be a whole lot simpler than that, because even us just doing some simple conversation here, we're continually discussing challenges. So a realistic lesson plan in my mind is going to be a real simple for a while.
I think that's a fair observation. I generally prefer simpler ones anyway, because they're easy for me to follow and because I like to improvise a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Maybe as you're getting started, this is a very, all of hers, all the ones that Linda put together are very detailed. And unless you manage the time during your class with incredible precision, you might have a hard time getting through it all. So
And
it's
if you manage it by speeding past people who are having problems, you're just going to lose those people.
I agree. I agree. So it's partly a matter of personal style. I think these are great though, because it's great lesson plans as examples though, because
Oh, yeah.
they show the thought that she's given to how do I want to carry out this task, or how do I want to go through this material given the restrictions that we have with online instruction.
Yep.
So I think it's really good for that reason. There is one thing on that note that I want to go through with you, and I'm going to show it. Actually, we went through it maybe in the first class. Did I show you how to access the audio files for intercombio lessons?
I don't think so.
All right, let's, I wasn't sure, but I'll do that right now.
You showed us how to move things around.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of nesting links as some people on the board are, because sometimes, like right now, when you when you want to get to something, you've got to go from document to document. Sorry.
My daughter helped me put the ISSU on my favorites. So that's how I got there.
What I just did was move from the volunteer document, which you all have, went to the online curriculum called Intercambio link. Has this page, which you've probably all been through now, just simply in order to access Intercambio. There's a link here called Audio Track Links for Teachers. And there is one, I'll even pull one up here. For each half of each level, there is one long audio track. So for example, this is level 3 left book. It's broken up into a bunch of, if you see these break marks where I'm scrolling at the bottom, a bunch of individual audio chunks. And typically what would happen as you were going through a lesson is that you might want, say, that audio chunk.
A lot of TV when you were a child, Grandma? Oh, no, Lila, I didn't.
So you'd want to have some idea where it is you want that cursor placed. You might even want to cue yourself up to that exact spot before the lesson began so you didn't goof around with it in front of the class. It's not a fatal problem, but so in order to access the audio tracks that support the material, volunteer document, this thing, online link called Intercambio gets you there. Audio track links for teachers gets you there. This is the list depending on what level and which half of the book pair you're looking at. And then finally that gets you to that actual link, the actual audio track. And there you need to preferably pre-choose which chunk of that audio track you're going to present. You can, of course, abbreviate that process once you've figured out which one of these audio tracks you're going to be using by just saving that link and going to it directly. You don't have to go through 5 steps to get there every time, but you all can probably work out that kind of stuff, those efficiency improvements. All right, without further ado, and before we run out of time here, I want to get to the presentation. There's not that much here, so we did have flexibility time-wise to digress a little bit. That's one page of the presentation. That's the 3rd page of the presentation. I think what had happened is I had opened up a different window originally, not my desktop, but a particular window. And so even though I was seeing this, you were seeing that original window that had opened up. So I had to unshare, stop share, and then reopen to access my desktop in general. All right, so the security button is on the left side of the menu bar that appears at the bottom of the screen if you're hosting. If you hit the security button, this submenu opens up. There's probably not too much here you'd want to use. If, for example, for some reason you thought somebody might be trying to get into your class that shouldn't be there, you could hit lock meeting. If you wanted to allow participants, not in breakout session, but in the principal session, to be able to share screen, you would uncheck that button. Excuse me, you would check that button. If you wanted them to be able to talk among themselves without you seeing it, to have private chat, you check the button. It's probably good, you know, if you think you might want to do those things, that you do this in a mock meeting, like you've done some of the other exercises, just to kind of get familiar with it. I don't think you'd be using this button too often, but you should at least know it's there. If you hit the participants button, you get a list of a column of each participant, and it indicates whether they're muted and whether their video is on. You can mute everybody. You can ask people to individually unmute. You can mute individuals. You can turn off video. You can ask people to turn on their video. So as we discussed, I think 2 days ago, you have a way to essentially quiet somebody or remove their video, but you can't turn them on without their consent. You can very easily see the status of everybody. When you create a breakout session, you know, you essentially get a column list also that has which breakout group each person is in, and then you can go and choose a breakout group if you want to visit it. I think I said 2 days ago that you probably never want to use remove, because that takes somebody out of the class, out of that session of the class permanently. You don't want to do that. I don't think. Let's see. You can turn, so when if I were the first one to this meeting, every time one of you got on, I would hear a doorbell ring to let me know that there's somebody else coming into the meeting. Now, of course, because I was set in gallery view, I could also see your video image suddenly appear. But you can turn, if you don't like that doorbell, if you don't like an audio signal telling you that somebody's shown up to your meeting, you can turn that off if you want to under security. As I said, you can enable participants to share their screen, and you can enable private chats among participants. I don't think you would ever want to do that either. I don't think there's anything to be gained by allowing private conversations during class, but that's something you can do. So what we segue into next in this material, which really kind of concludes the main body of the class, is a little bit more discussion about, you know, what are some of the limitations and some of the problems that arise in an online environment. Some of these, maybe all of these, we've touched on up to now. One is, what do you do without a whiteboard? Well, the answer there is pretty simple. You have a whiteboard. You can have multiple whiteboards, as a matter of fact, but they are not physical whiteboard that you walk up to and write on. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but once you get the hang of it, having a blank document available or using the Zoom whiteboard is pretty simple. I find it simpler to have a blank document open and put information there as things are coming up in a class. If you prefer the Zoom whiteboard for whatever reason, that's fine too. As we have discussed a bunch of times, got to be aware that students are on phones, and there are a lot of issues that come with that, but the principal one is that the screen is very small, and as a result, you need to be really, really careful to make sure what you're looking at to them is going to be presented large enough that it'll be useful to them. There will be distractions at some point during your classes. Somebody will have too much street noise. Maybe you'll have too much street noise. Things like maybe there'll be children playing, a lot of things can happen. There are tools, as we've discussed, to manage distractions mainly by muting, using Zoom, but being aware of that and making a decision when a distraction seems to have risen to the point where action is required is something you want to be thinking about. Communicating with students refers to your need at the beginning of your classes to agree with your students how you're going to communicate with them outside of class. Are you going to use WhatsApp? Are you going to use a text system? Are you going to use email? Whatever, maybe it's going to be a blend depending on what capabilities the people have, but you need to kind of work that through with your students. I'll just say as an aside, I was looking at the roster on a couple of days ago, and I was thrilled, even at the lower levels, that the majority of the people had signed up with email accounts. So maybe they don't use their email account very often, but if they have an email account already and they had an email account when they enrolled in classes, there's a good chance that at least they know enough about that. If you agree in class that that's going to be your way of passing links and documents and stuff onto them, it won't be a problem.
Do we find out during registration if the student texts? Because that's one of the things that I collect the first day, because that's how I communicate about snow days and other types of things. If I can, I just do a group text.
I think when you receive your roster, you're going to receive their email address, probably their telephone number if they provided one.
Okay.
Because we're going to ask you all, again, you're going to receive a letter that asks you to do this very soon, the one that comes with your class assignments. One of the things it'll say is, be sure to reach out to your students before classes begin.
Okay.
There's some dispute within the board about whether we want to allow people to be called, a literal telephone call before classes begin. My opinion is no. I think it's safer and less intrusive to send an email or text, but that isn't totally settled at this point. But yeah, that I think is going to be coming with your roster, which will come with the rest of the information that you get fairly soon.
So we could email everybody and just say, among whatever else, do you text?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I would make one more suggestion though. Before sending a mass mailing that includes everybody's email address, or worse yet, everybody's telephone number, for example, a text that goes out in mass to all of your students, contact them individually first. It's conceivable, maybe I'm hypersensitive about this, but it's conceivable that someone might not want their phone number shared with, or even their email address shared with everybody else in class. So again, BCCing or something like that may be the answer.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I would suggest the first contact be not a mass contact, to be an individual contact, even though it's a little cumbersome.
Absolutely.
We talked about class sizes. A few of the classes are on the large side right now, and we're trying to work that out either by adding classes or adding assistants. The initial limit was 8 students for a teacher who's alone, 12 students for a teacher with an assistant. Hopefully we'll be able to keep to that.
My input on that is the assistant, if you're in person, does a ton of things. What is the assistant going to be able to do when you're figuring out the tech and you're online? The idea of having 12 students with an assistant who really can't help me is a little daunting.
Agreed. The reason we did that, well, there are 2 really obvious things from my point of view that an assistant can do no matter what. One is you can delegate certain things to the student, like we're going to be talking about how to pronounce this vowel on Tuesday. Would you mind doing that section? Or maybe the student or the assistant just wants experience doing some teaching and says, yeah, I would like to help. So can you assign some part of the agenda to me so I can do that? So that would be one thing. The even more obvious one, or the one that really drove our setting the limits that we did, was that, especially at lower levels, having breakout sessions without an assistant, without a teacher in them, was going to be, we felt, problematic. I think with level 5, level 6, even level 4 classes, if you break them up and there are 3 people there that are meant to maintain a conversation on their own in English, you can probably trust them to pretty much do that. level 1, level 2, level 3, maybe or intro, maybe a little bit more difficult for them to maintain a conversation. And so it'd be good to have somebody in there to facilitate. So if you have an assistant, you can set up 2 breakout rooms, for example, with 6 people each, and they will not be in orbit by themselves.
I would also note, as being an assistant, that I would be looking to the teacher for experience in doing that.
And you're right. You're right. I often have 2 and even 3 assistants, and what I'm doing is training new lead teachers.
Right.
You know, not only do they help me, but there's a goal.
Yes,
you're
that's
exactly
what I was
right.
looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I haven't used this, but one thing you can do with your students to make sure that they really are, that you're communicating really cleanly, again, this may be particularly useful for lower levels, is to use that thumbs up, thumbs down to assess whether they understand. Does everybody understand? Please give me a thumbs up signal with your computer, and they can press that icon and actually have a thumbs up appear, and you can quickly scan to make sure everybody is okay. And if somebody's got a thumbs down, you can go a little bit deeper with them. That's a good technique, just to be clear, particularly if you have a larger class. If you have a dozen people in your class, people might be afraid to speak up if they don't understand something clearly. Maybe they'll feel a little bit more comfortable to give a thumbs down.
I don't see thumbs down as a choice. I just see clapping hands and thumbs up.
Mhm.
Oops.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Well, it could be thumbs up or nothing, or thumbs up or thumbs up or nothing is the same binary choice.
Sure.
So thank you for that. I'll fix that in the slides.
I've got a question about that. How do you remove the thumbs up? Does it
It'll
just go away?
Goes away, yeah. Obviously, calling on students individually to keep them engaged, that's an obvious thing, whether you're in person or online. Giving them plenty of time to work out answers if they're working on a set of exercises. Number 10 is something that I've not done, but thank you, Molly.
I'm just trying to take it. How do you go? Take it away again?
It's gone. Did you take it away?
I just tapped twice. I don't know. Just experimenting.
Let's see. Number 10, students calling one another, I think is a kind of clever idea to get the students, engaged in the class a little bit more, rather than you always choosing, okay, can you answer? Can you answer? Can you answer? Okay, Kathy, can you answer this question? And then you pick who answers the next question. So you can set up chains of students, asking each other, just to make sure that, everybody's involved. And I think it's just kind of a fun, playful way to have the students participate.
No, that works really well. We used to have a talking stick that each student, when he was finished, would pass to another student. So they do it that way. And that was kind of fun. It was a carved back scratcher, monkey back scratcher.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a virtual. We
Virtual-
had a pelota in Spanish class, a ball that you'd toss to somebody else in class. So this is like a virtual talking stick or pelota.
Cool.
Minimal text per screen. So the next couple of slides show these same bullets with more text formatted different ways. And if you were looking at these on a phone, you would see just a whole lot of gibberish, and you could read it, but you'd probably be focused on reading it as opposed to focus on listening to the teacher. So the recommendation is, again, something I think you're probably familiar with from presentation or class slide production 101. Be judicious about how much verbiage you include in a slide versus, you have to trade off brevity for clarity. So as long as you can keep them focused on you and get the point across, it doesn't have to be a complete, extremely verbose bullet. So this is the same information now repeated on 3 different pages, just to make the point that it can get really cluttered if you add too many words.
Hey, Scott,
Yes.
good example. And now could you toggle back through those screens to show us? Okay, good. It's just a good example. Bullet points as opposed to paragraphs.
Right, really succinct bullet point. This may be almost too succinct because you could almost forget what point was I going to make about that. But these are clearly more detailed than they need to be, I think. Now, instead of what we're going to go into breakout now, here we go. Here's a case where I'd like you to take a photo of this. We're not going to go into breakout with only 2 breakout rooms, or excuse me, 2 people per breakout room. We're going to have 5, so I think there'll be 3 breakout rooms. And this is principally an opportunity for you to provide a little bit of feedback to the board, provide us feedback or ask us for help. But I thought this would be a pretty good opportunity while everything is fresh in your minds to get a little feedback. And you can also practice creating a whiteboard document that you can then speak from. In fact, I tell you what, just for interest, each group should prepare a real simple answer on a document to these questions. And I'm going to change it so you can share in the main session. So students will have sharing privileges. And we'll see how that goes. I've actually not done that, but let's see how that goes. Did everybody get that? I hope.
So to create a white document, what are my steps? A blank document to write on?
Well, you can go, the easiest way I think would be to go to your desktop and open up a blank Word document and edit that. Maybe an equally simple alternative would be to use the Zoom whiteboard capability that we've gone through in a couple of classes, and then use that as your whiteboard. That I know you can do because we've done that a couple of times.
And how do I do that? Because I'm on my iPad, I don't have Word.
Maybe somebody else in the group can do that.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know how the buttons are arranged on an iPad off the top of my head.
Okay, no problem.
All right, going to breakout. Take about 7 minutes to do this. A nice arbitrary prime number. How'd that go? Seemed like you're all doing pretty well. Okay.
We only got to the first question because it took about half the session to get everybody to where they could do it. And now we don't know if we saved it or not. We were typing.
Yeah, the save was the problem.
Same thing. So how would we see if it's saved?
Yeah.
How did you create the document? What form was it? Was it Zoom?
It's on my whiteboard.
Yeah, whiteboard
there.
too.
It's not there.
Oh,
I was looking up here for a save. Oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, there is a saved. I remember.
Well, we didn't have time to find the save. But
Put that on the challenges.
Yeah.
Did anybody manage to save it so they're in a position to share what they came up with?
No?
I did.
All right, Eleanor, go for it. Please share your screen with the document.
Okay, there's my document.
Okay, can you walk us through it? What
Sure.
you all concluded?
For the first question, we thought that connection issues may be a challenge. For example, during, the class, a student is speaking or students, and all of a sudden, sometimes, the screen pauses or freezes. And, dealing with that may be a challenge. The other thing I have is that students who have technical issues can be a challenge. And what do we do? Do we stop the class to assist them? Do we, how do we handle those? And then the second question was things that the Literacy Council can do. Can they help us with technical support? And we suggested that having a technical practice class for students before the class may be something that's desirable.
Right. So the practice class would be, for example, Zoom access class or basic Zoom skills type.
Right, right. Maybe before the first class starts.
You know, that's part of what we're doing in the orientation class. Like about half of the agenda is intro to Zoom. Now there's a bit of a kind of bootstrapping challenge here because in order to access the orientation class, they need to be able to get onto Zoom. But lacking any other mechanism, we're going to spend part of the orientation classes for those that choose to attend those. They're optional. Going through how to use Zoom, how to mute yourself, you know, what's the etiquette on Zoom, at least some of the basic technical issues.
How do we get invited to those orientation classes?
Let's see. I think you'll see the same when they're actually scheduled. It'll be the 2 weeks before. There'll be a bunch of different times. How many, I'm not sure, but several different times. The 2 weeks before classes begin. So that's still, you know, a week or two away.
Okay, but
there'll be an announcement sent out, you know, with the students as the primary target audience. But I believe you'll all be copied on that, so you know it's
Okay.
happening.
Okay, that works.
So we can join the orientation session.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
of course. There'll be open meetings.
Okay.
There's gonna be no sign up or anything like that. We want it to be there to be no barriers at all to people attending if they want to.
Okay.
We're designing the orientation classes with the lower levels in mind, thinking that they're going to need the most help, most hand-holding. But anybody is welcome to attend, and certainly teachers are welcome to attend. Teachers and assistants.
And I think realistically, any level is going to need help if this is a new platform for them. I don't think. Yeah,
A fair number of students have been attending classes online already. What fraction, I don't know. As of a couple of days ago, the number of people enrolled, the count was something like 320 or 330. And I don't know, maybe a third at least of those people were attending classes or attending sessions of some kind over the summer. So they won't be completely, you know, unaware of how to handle Zoom. Yeah, I think we should anticipate, this is all good. These are all good suggestions. And we've talked a little bit about what to, like should we have a tech support number or a tech support office? And we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't settled that yet. I think we all agree that's desirable, but how to staff it and how to make it available is a little bit trickier. But that I'll still reinforce that with the board and kind of keep an eye on it myself. Did any of the other breakout groups have things that they urgently wanted to add to this list?
I don't think it's urgent, but I quickly made our three, creating connection with the students over this platform. The learning curve for teachers, the learning curve for students, and the complexity and the length of some of the lessons. So things you've heard.
Okay. Well, that's good. And I'm glad that you at least had a chance to think through it. The board is going to try to come up with some mechanisms specifically for volunteers to provide continual support and to provide continual channels for feedback to us of things that we might want to do. Because we know that no matter what we do ahead of the season, ahead of the school year, there are going to be some obstacles. There are going to be some problems that we have to solve, and you know we want to be there to help you. I think we're all a little bit insecure with what's happening, me included. So we'll patiently work through whatever problems come up together. All right, there is another sample lesson, and you've been through 2 sample lessons. The third one is level 5. It's not dissimilar from the ones that you've looked at, but it's another good example for you to use in formulating your own lessons. We are done with the material. Did anybody, we can end the class. Did anybody want to ask anything or bring anything else up before we break?
I just wanted to touch on something that somebody said, I think during the first class about ads popping up. If you're a Windows user, there's a great free program called AdBlocker Plus. I've used it for a couple of years now, and it's really great. It blocks basically every ad that could pop up on YouTube. So if you're a Windows user, I'm not sure how that works with Mac, but
How do you get that? You just Google that, Ad Blocker Plus, and Google it? How do you get that?
yeah, and then you just download it, and it's totally free, and it works really well. So
Actually, while you guys were in breakout session after I visited everybody, I apologize for dismissing you prematurely slightly. I want to share my screen one more time, just for a moment, to answer the question about how you order a book. Let's see. So just think of this as an open Google window without anything on it. If you go to Intercambio's website, not ISSU, but Intercambio itself, and you can get there through any of the Intercambio links. This is the home page for Intercambio. Let's see, shop, and then confidence and connections. So I went to Intercambio, hit the shop button. The confidence and connections book are all under confidence and connections. And from here, you can choose the level, whether you want a teacher or student version, and buy the book. So it's very straightforward. You don't even need to work through any volunteer documents or any of those links. If you just search for Intercambio and go to their website, you can order your book that way.
Scott,
Yes.
I have a comment because I reached out to Linda and asked her about buying a book, and she said, oh, wait, they're going to do a group order where all the students and teachers' books will be ordered at once, and it might be at a discount, saving on shipping.
That's true, but it depends. So I'm not going to wait. And I know there are other teachers who've decided they're not going to wait because you're not going to get your student orders until classes begin, and the books won't be delivered until sometime in October. So if you're willing to wait until, and all you're going to save is the shipping cost, and maybe a little bit on the cost of the book.
Okay.
So for me, I don't mind spending an extra $7 or something like that to get it sooner so that I can use it actually in preparing for the beginning of the year. But that is entirely your call, because if you wait and you group it with the student order, you'll save a little bit of money, maybe up to $7, $8, I would guess, because you'll have much less shipping cost, imputed to the cost of your book. And there's a book discount as well, but you'll have to wait till October.
Okay. So actually, that may be a little bit of a challenge for the students too, if they need a hard copy book and they have to wait.
That's right. I mean, they can do the same thing, but they're not even required to have a hard copy of the book. It's an option for students that want it. But yes, you're right. It's exactly the same situation for students.
So I have a question on this donate button. If we donate through this link, does that go towards Beaverton, or does
No, no, that's a donation to Intercambio.
Thank you.
I would say if you want to make a donation, and I'm not soliciting donations for Beaverton Literacy Council, but if you did want to make a donation, I would talk to probably Lisa Sambora, who's the treasurer, or Linda, either one of them.
Through there. No, I understand. I just thought since it was on this page, I wondered, if it was linked.
No, Intercambio is a great organization, so it's probably it's not wasted money, but it has nothing to do with BLC.
Okay.
Any other questions? Again, there'll be office hours next week, and then further office hours scheduled in the weeks after that. At any time, if you have questions that I can help you with about what we've gone through, or about Beaverton Literacy Council activities in general, feel free to send me an email, and I'll do my best to get you an answer. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you all
you.
for coming,
Thank
for
you,
spending
Scott.
time last week.
thank
I'll
you,
see you
Scott.
around, I think, probably eventually.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.